Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from RAU'S Study Circle.
Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will discuss the daily edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 20th February 2021. And the articles that we will discuss today are displayed on your screen. So let us start the discussion. These two articles on page number 6 talk about the defamation law that exists in India. And they have come up in today's newspaper in the context of the recent verdict that has come out in the Priya Ramani versus MJ Akbar case. And you might all be knowing that in the Me Too campaign or during the Me Too movement, Priya Ramani, who is a journalist, had accused MJ Akbar, who is a politician and was a minister in the recent government, of sexual harassment. And in this regard, MJ Akbar had filed a criminal defamation case against Priya Ramani, who accused MJ Akbar of sexual harassment back in 1993. And in this defamation case, the court has given out the judgment that a woman cannot be punished for criminal defamation when she raises her voice against sexual harassment. And this is because the right of reputation cannot be protected at the cost of right of life and dignity of the woman. In this line, the court has also said that the woman has a right to put her grievance at any platform of her choice and even after decades. That is, although the act of sexual harassment had happened back in 1993 and the case of defamation was filed in the year 2018, and the revelation of this sexual harassment was also done in the same year during the Me Too campaign. And generally, the delay in speaking out or filing a formal complaint is often used against women to discredit their allegation. However, the court has acknowledged that the woman has right to put her grievance of sexual harassment at any platform of her choice and at any time she chooses to bring this thing out. Further, in this particular case, the court has acknowledged that there was no legal framework prior to the Supreme Court's landmark verdict, which is known as Vishaka verdict. And in this Vishaka verdict, the Supreme Court had outlined certain guidelines regarding sexual harassment at the workplace. And these guidelines were incorporated into the Indian laws in the year 2013. And as there was no legal framework prior to the Supreme Court's Vishaka guidelines in 1997, the court observed that the delay on the part of journalist Priya Ramani in speaking out against MJ Akbar could not be seen as being motivated. Now, this case brings out two important issues. First is that the judgment that has come out has protected and preserved the space for women who have found their voice in the recent times by movements like the Me Too movements and also because of the presence of social media. And in this line, they can speak out their experience of sexual harassment in the workplace even after many years. That is, a new kind of space has been created for the women to speak out the issues related to sexual harassment that they have faced at workplace in the past years. The second issue here is that the defamation has become a tool to silence the critics, which is often used by influential and powerful people to accuse or blame the victims of defaming them. So in this discussion, we will first look at what is meant by defamation and what type of laws exist regarding the defamation in India. Also, we'll look at the constitutional angle as to how the defamation law stands against the constitutional right or the fundamental right that has been provided under the Article 19, that is, right to freedom of speech. Further, there has been an argument in India that the criminal defamation law that exists in India has been used to silence the critics or the victims themselves. And that is why there is a debate that should defamation remain as a criminal offence or not. So let us look at all these angles related to the issue of defamation, and they can be very important for us from General Studies paper 2 point of view under the Constitution and Polity. Now, defamation is used as a general term for a legal claim involving injury to one's reputation that is caused by a false statement of fact. So simply it refers to the act of publication of defamatory content that lowers the reputation of an individual or an entity when observed through the perspective of an ordinary man. So basically it is any act of publication of content that lowers the reputation of any individual or an entity. Now, as far as the defamation in India is concerned, it is termed as both civil as well as a criminal offence. In civil offence, a person who is defamed can either move to high court or subordinate courts and seek damages in the form of monetary compensation, and there is no punishment in the form of jail sentence if there is a civil defamation lawsuit that has been filed in either high court or the subordinate courts. As far as the criminal defamation is concerned, the person against whom a defamation case is filed might be sentenced to 2 years imprisonment or fined, or both will be given. So that is what defamation means, and these are the two ways in which remedies are available against defamation in India. Now, we all know that in the Indian Constitution, in the fundamental rights, we have been provided in the Article 19 the right to freedom of speech. However, reasonable restrictions have been imposed on the right to freedom of speech. And these reasonable restrictions have been provided in the form of contempt of court, defamation, or incitement to an offence. That is, you cannot use your right to freedom of speech in order to bring out contempt of the court, defamation to any person or entity, and incitement of an offence in the country. So accordingly, defamation has been provided as an exception to the right to freedom of speech under the Constitution of India. Now, besides being provided as an exception under the Indian Constitution, there are legal provisions related to the defamation law. And there are sections 499 and 500 of the Indian Penal Code that deal with the defamation, or the legal provisions related to defamation have been provided in these sections of the Indian Penal Code. Now, the section 499 defines the offence of defamation, while the section 500 defines the punishment for it. So, under section 499, defamation has been defined as whoever by words either spoken or intended to be read, or by signs or by visible representation, makes or publishes any imputation concerning any person intending to harm, or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of such person, is said except in cases hereinafter expected to defame that person. So this is basically legal language that has been used in this section 499. However, what concerns us is that it brings or lowers down the reputation of a person by the means of publication of any kind of information related to that particular person. And regarding the punishment, the section 500 reads that whoever defames another shall be punished with simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years, or fine, or with both. Now, one of the issues that have been raised against defamation is that the criminal defamation is used to silence the critics or the victims themselves. And as such, let us look at this angle as to why defamation has been provided as a crime in the law. Now, defamation has been considered as a crime because reputation is an asset to each and everyone, and any damage to such asset can be legally dealt with, and defamation laws have been enacted to prevent person maliciously using their right to freedom of speech and expression against any person by the intention of lowering the reputation of that particular person. So in this regard, let us look at the debate that has started in India, that should the defamation remain a criminal offence in India. So in this regard, we will be looking at arguments in favor of defamation as a criminal offence, and also arguments against defamation as a criminal offence. So first, let us start with arguments in favor of defamation remaining a criminal offence. Now, the arguments that are in favor of defamation remaining a criminal offence include the income inequality that exists in our society, the anonymity that has been provided by the internet in India. Further, Article 21 provides for the protection of dignity of individuals, and also changes that have been made from time to time regarding the interpretation of the legal provisions related to defamation in India. And all these arguments highlight that defamation should still remain a criminal offence in India. Now, as far as income inequality is concerned, it has been said that defamation should remain a penal offence in India, as the defamer may be too poor to compensate the victim in some cases. However, the same argument can be used against defamation remaining a criminal offence. This is because the rich and the powerful people in the society can use the provisions of the criminal law related to the defamation to harass the poor people. So the inequality or the income inequality argument can be used both in the favor of defamation remaining a criminal offence as well as an argument against the criminal law related to the defamation. Second argument in favor of keeping defamation as a criminal offence is the anonymity that is provided by the internet. Now, it is being said that there is no mechanism to censor the internet from inside, and that is why online defamation could only be adequately countered by retaining defamation as a criminal offence. That is, if defamation remains a criminal offence, there will be a kind of deterrence in the society, especially on the internet where anonymity is a major issue. And such anonymity can be used by various people in the society to defame or lower the reputation of various influential and important people. The third argument in favor of keeping defamation as a criminal offence is related to the fundamental right that has been provided in the Article 21. And as we all know that the Article 21 provides for the protection of dignity of individuals. And as such, the criminalization of defamation is a part of the government's or the state's compelling interest to protect the right to dignity and good reputation of its citizens. So this Article 21 obligates the Indian state to protect the dignity of its citizens. And accordingly, it is being argued that by the means of a criminal law that exists related to defamation, the state or the government can protect the rights of the individuals or the dignity of the individuals in a society. Another argument related to keeping defamation as a criminal offense is that various changes have been made from time to time in the sections 499 and 500 of the Indian Penal Code. And in this regard, it has been said that 10 exceptions have been provided in the section 499 and 500 related to defamation law. And these exceptions clearly exclude from its ambit any speech that is truthful, made in good faith, or is for public good. That is, adequate protection has been provided in the sections 499 and 500 of the defamation law. And that is why it is being argued that as exceptions and protections have been provided under the criminal law itself related to defamation, the defamation should still remain as a criminal offense. However, there are various arguments that have been forwarded against defamation remaining a criminal offense. Now, the first argument against defamation remaining a criminal offense is that countries across the globe have decriminalized the defamation issue, and they consider defamation as a civil wrong only and not a criminal offense. In this background, the Human Rights Committee of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights called upon states to abolish criminal defamation, noting that it intimidates citizens and makes them shy away from exposing the wrongdoings that exist in the society. And this is a very common issue related to defamation, that it is used by the powerful people and it intimidates the normal citizens and makes them shy from exposing the wrongdoings of such powerful and influential people. And accordingly, there is a global trend which aims at decriminalizing the issue of defamation, and defamation is only a civil wrong in various developed countries of the world. And the second issue is, of course, related to the misuse of the criminal law related to defamation by influential and powerful people for intimidating the citizens of the country or also the weaker sections of the society. And that is why this judgment that has been provided by the court related to the defamation in the sexual harassment of the woman is a very important one. This is because it will motivate other women to come forward and tell their tales of sexual harassment at the hands of their bosses or the fellow employees at the workplaces. And that is why this is a very landmark judgment in this regard. Further, the process of prosecution under the criminal law related to defamation itself becomes a kind of punishment. And in this regard, the state or the governments have used it as a means to coerce media and political opponents also. Further, such a criminal law is also open to misuse by various groups or sections who claim that their feelings have been hurt or they have been insulted. And as such, they abuse such kind of criminal laws by initiating multiple proceedings in different places across the country. And that is how they aim at harassing the sane voices that exist in the society. Further, the argument against defamation creating harm to the public order is that the public order concerns have already been taken care of various other sections under the Indian Penal Code. And accordingly, acts that may harm public order are covered by sections 124, 153, and 153A. And as such, criminal defamation does not serve any overarching public interest. So clearly, we have seen arguments in favor of keeping defamation as a criminal offence. Also, we have seen the arguments against keeping defamation as a criminal offence. Now, although the Supreme Court had upheld the defamation as a criminal offence back in 2016, the recent judgment related to the sexual harassment at workplace under the Me Too campaign has highlighted that such a criminal law can be misused by influential people in the society. And this can lead to intimidation of the common citizens and especially weaker sections of the society who will refrain from coming forward and highlighting the various issues that they have faced. For example, in this case, the issue of sexual harassment was highlighted as late as 2018 when the act had already happened back in 1993. So that is why the criminal law related to defamation should once again be revisited. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 13 reads that the transatlantic alliance is back, and this has been said by the President of United States of America, that is Joe Biden. Now, this news article has come up in the newspapers in the context that the previous President of United States of America, Donald Trump, had threatened to withdraw from one of the important transatlantic alliance, that is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization or the NATO. In this regard, Joe Biden has promised to bring back this transatlantic alliance in the form of boosting of the organization that is known as NATO. So some of the points related to the NATO organization can be important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Now, regarding NATO, you should note that it originated after World War II in order to counter the expansion of Soviet Union into the Western Europe. So this was basically a part of the Cold War strategy of the Western world to counter the erstwhile USSR. Now, in order to counter the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the USSR had formulated a pact which was known as Warsaw Pact. And both the NATO and the Warsaw Pact were military alliances that were created during the period of Cold War. However, this Warsaw Pact got dissolved after the USSR was disintegrated in 1990s. And accordingly, only the North Atlantic Treaty Organization remains till date, which was created after the Second World War in the Cold War era. Accordingly, NATO is a military alliance of countries from Europe and North America, and it provides a link between the Western countries of the two continents, that is the North American and the European continent. And you can see that it involves countries that border the Atlantic Ocean in this map. Further, NATO's membership is open to any other European country which adheres to the principle of NATO, and it aims at contributing to the security of North Atlantic area. In this regard, the NATO has incorporated various countries, and presently its membership stands at 30 countries. And some of the erstwhile countries that were associated with USSR in the Warsaw Pact have now joined the NATO. Further, decisions at the NATO are taken by consensus. Now, the core tasks of NATO include collective defense, crisis management, and cooperative security. And the principle of collective defense, under which an attack against one or several of the NATO members is considered as an attack against all. So, this is the most important principle of NATO, which makes it a very important military alliance. And this was basically the Cold War strategy that was adopted by the Western world against the influence or the rising influence of the erstwhile USSR. So basically, if any attack happens against a NATO member, it will be considered as an attack against all the members of the NATO. Now, this principle till now has only been invoked once, and this was invoked in response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center in the United States of America in 2001. So this becomes an important fact that the article related to collective defense has only been invoked once since the creation of NATO. And the principle of collective defense has been provided in the important article of the NATO organization that is known as Article 5. So, this is again an important fact. Now, the member countries of the NATO organization can also be asked in your preliminary examination. In this regard, as you can see, it involves the countries or the transatlantic countries which are located across the Atlantic Ocean, as can be seen in this world map. And it includes countries like Canada and United States of America from the North America, and United Kingdom, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, and various other countries in the European continent across the Atlantic Ocean. So keep them in mind. You can be asked a question in the preliminary examination related to NATO. And you might be knowing that previously also UPSC has asked very simple questions based on international organizations. So accordingly, this can also be an important aspect. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 5 is related to one of the important lakes of Rajasthan, that is Sambhar Lake. Now, Sambhar Lake has been recognized as a wetland under the RAU'S Convention in India. In this regard, you should go through the various wetlands that have been identified under the RAU'S Convention in India, and they have all been listed in the prelims compass related to environment and ecology. In that, we have clearly defined if the wetland is man-made or natural, and is the water in that particular lake or wetland saline or fresh water. Besides that, various other details have also been given in the prelims compass of environment ecology related to these wetlands. So regarding the Sambhar Lake, you should note that it is a saline lake and it is also a natural lake and is located in the state of Rajasthan. So this is a lake which is also known for its inland drainage. And this site is important for a variety of wintering water birds or the water birds that migrate to this particular place during the winter season. And it is also the second largest breeding ground of flamingos in India. Now, you might be knowing that Sambhar Lake was also in news in last year related to a disease related to birds that was known as avian botulism that led to the death of lot of birds in the Sambhar Lake. So accordingly, Sambhar Lake keeps on coming in the newspapers regularly and you should be aware of its location and some important facts related to this particular lake. Now, associated with the Ramsar Convention is the Montreux Record, and the sites that are included in the Montreux Record need a more focus on their conservation and restoration. Accordingly, there are two lakes from India, that is the Loktak Lake and the Kevla Dev National Park. Both are the wetlands that have been included in the Montreux Record that is associated with the Ramsar Convention. So this is also an additional information that you need to keep in mind, and various aspects of the Ramsar Convention, the wetlands associated, etc. have been covered in your prelims compass. Do go through them. Now, this article on page number 14 talks about the new public sector enterprise policy that has been released by the Government of India in the recent budget. And in the recent budget, the finance minister had announced the new public sector enterprise policy in order to undertake strategic disinvestment of the public sector undertakings or the enterprises. Now, under this policy, various sectors will be classified as strategic and non-strategic sectors. In this regard, the policy has identified 4 sectors as strategic sectors. In this regard, this new policy has identified 4 sectors as strategic sectors. First one is atomic energy, space and defense. Second sector is transport and telecommunications. Third one is power, petroleum, coal and other minerals. And fourth one is banking, insurance and financial services. In these strategic sectors, there will be bare minimum presence of the public sector enterprises. And the remaining central public sector enterprises in the strategic sectors will be privatized or merged with other central public sector enterprises. And in the non-strategic sectors, the CPSCs will be privatized, otherwise shall be closed. In this regard, you need to learn about the advantages and disadvantages of the disinvestment policy that is pursued by the Government of India. And the disinvestment policy, its advantages and the various issues associated with it have already been discussed in the DNS of 14 February 2021 by Vaibhav sir. Do go through this video. You will get a very good insight into what is the disinvestment policy of Government of India, what are its advantages and what are its disadvantages. Also, you can go through the budget discussion where the government's strategic disinvestment policy has also been discussed in detail. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Again, this article on page number 13 reads that the United States of America is ready for talks on Iran nuclear deal and this has been highlighted by the new president of United States of America. Now, before Joe Biden replaced Donald Trump, there were a lot of articles in the newspapers related to Joe Biden and his likely policy on the Iran nuclear deal. And we have discussed various aspects related to Iran nuclear deal and the elections in the United States of America in the DNS videos, and accordingly in the DNS of 4th December 2020, we have already discussed various aspects of the Iran nuclear deal and the likely approach that the Biden administration is going to follow towards this Iran nuclear deal in detail. So do go through this DNS video and you will get a good idea about the Iran nuclear deal and its dynamics and the approach that Joe Biden is going to follow regarding this Iran nuclear deal. With this, we conclude today's discussion, and this is the question for the day.